having an idea is one thing, and knowing what to do with it is another thing. And you either need experience or you need other people to help you so that then you can advance that idea. We've got a couple of programs. One is a startup school. So Startup School is a program that enables young people to come and be trained on how to be effective founders of startups. Innovations hardly scale on their own or with only government support. They need private sector support to scale and penetrate. Why? Because private sector is the one that understands markets. Hi, my name is Dr. Tonny Omwanza, the CEO of Kenya National Innovation Agency. Really humbled to be here to have an engagement about the National Innovation System and its contribution to the economic prosperity of Kenya. So I've been here for about 4 years, and we started the institution from scratch. I was employee number one. So in that journey, we have grown the institution in terms of its strategic priorities. We've defined them. We've mobilized a number of partners, mobilized resources, designed a lot of programs, and established the institution that now is internationally recognized for the kind of output that it produces. So the Innovation Agency was established by an act of parliament. It's a semi-autonomous government institution for purposes of developing and managing the national system of innovation. So our job is not to create innovations. Our job is to develop and manage the national system of innovation. So innovations basically come from people. Right? And you need to facilitate people in order to first develop those innovative ideas and nurture those innovative ideas for purposes of them being commercially viable or being adopted in society. So our job is to make sure that people innovate and that their innovations succeed. So our existence really is to develop a national system of innovation that facilitates taking ideas to market, that helps to create jobs and wealth out of innovative ideas. So when society is innovative, then we are succeeding. When society has good policies that protect innovations, then we are succeeding. If people succeed in commercializing their ideas and creating money and wealth out of their ideas, then we are succeeding. If the education system is evolving very well to produce more and more innovative solutions in society, then we're succeeding. If funding is available for innovation, all right, for them to thrive, then we're succeeding. So here I'm listening to you the things that make up a system. Innovative ideas only make sense if they are going to solve a problem or they're going to add value to people's lives. Yes. So if, for example, I get you a dress that makes you happy, or I get you a shirt that makes you feel really great. So you see, I've added value to your life because you're happier. Okay? Yes. Or if I manage to get you an umbrella that is not heavy and is extremely light, that it disappears in your bag and then you press the button and then all of a sudden it blocks you from rain. So the frustration of rain are not there anymore. And you really want to buy that kind of umbrella that reduces the pain of you being rained on and reduces the pain of carrying something heavy. Then I'll have innovated and solved something for you and you're willing to pay for it. You see what I mean? So I'm just using those as simple examples that I can only know that you have innovative ideas if I see some of those ideas. Because it's one thing to say that I have innovative ideas, and it's another thing to see. Because otherwise I'll have to give money to everybody who says that I have an amazing idea. But once you are able to document your idea and show the basics of your idea, then we are able to see this can make sense. Then you become a very good candidate for support in different ways. But it's also important to mention that innovation does not only succeed because you got money. It also succeeds because you got good mentorship. It also succeeds because you've got good incubation programs that guide you on how to develop an idea further, for it to advance. It means that you must have complementary skills in your team, because you can be an engineer but not necessarily a marketer. And so you can create things, but they don't look appealing, or you're not able to sell them to other people. Or you can have very good sales capacity, but you just don't know how to fundraise, so that then the idea can be developed using the resources that you've attracted. So we are interested in the totality of ideas, in the comprehensiveness of ideas. The ideas must be housed somewhere where there is a team, where there is an appropriate policy, where there is a good environment for you to try out your ideas. You have to have the complementary skills, or you have the relevant experience that enables you to, to develop an idea. Having an idea is one thing, and knowing what to do with it is another thing. And you either need experience or you need other people to help you, so that then you can advance that idea. And so our job is to make sure that Kenya, as an environment, has what it takes to develop and create and scale ideas that then can be used in society. So there are a couple of ways we can look at your project. The question. So if we look at it in terms of the end products, we can list a number of startups that we have supported that are doing well in industry. If we look at it in terms of the interventions that we have created to facilitate for those ideas to succeed, yes, we've got a couple of programs. One is a startup school. So a startup school is a program that enables young people to come and be trained on how to be effective founders of startups. It also trains people who are teaching entrepreneurship on how to effectively train founders. We've got another program which we call Research to Commercialization Accelerator. So this looks at people who have research products in universities, TVETs, research centers, and hand-holding them on how they can build enterprises out of their research outputs. So it's one thing, to produce very good research, and I've come up with this amazing thing, and I've published and protected the intellectual property. But then now, how do I build an enterprise out of it? That is what we call an R2C accelerator. So you see, we create interventions that then enable people to advance their ideas into commercial value. Another good example is we run, for example, the KeNIA Innovation Week at the end of the year, where we energize the entire ecosystem and bring people to conversations about how to improve our performance as a country. We run a commercialization summit for institutional leaders who we consider to be entrepreneurial leaders. When you're an institutional leader like a vice chancellor, you're overseeing 10,000 students, and you may underestimate the power that you carry in influencing their innovative potential. Because if you energize them, they can be more innovative than they currently are. If you provide certain kind of interventions like recognitions or prizes or awards or challenges or exhibition, so you're creating the platform for them to thrive in their entrepreneurial journey. So those are classic examples where we've done very many initiatives. We run an innovation academy where we train a lot of people on how to develop effective innovation strategies or IP policies, developing master plans and so forth. Because, like I said, we intervene to build a stronger national system of innovation. We also fund. For example, we run a presidential innovation challenge under WAT. And in this challenge, we look for people who have innovative ideas across the country, and we evaluate them independently, and we recognize the most progressive and promising, and we give them awards. Normally, the highest could be in the range of 5 million Kenyan shillings, and others also subsequent. And last year, for example, we gave as many as 42 counties across the country. And this year, I think, is going to be a little more than that. From all the counties, we get winners, and then we get national winners. And the president actually issues these kind of awards. So those are some of the examples of interventions that we've created over time. Okay, so the relationship between KeNIA and private sector is that KeNIA, first of all, is semi-autonomous government institution. It's actually a government institution. It's just that it is governed by a board, an independent board. And it receives funding from government. But we also raise funding on our own from partners, donors, grants, and other private sector. We also raise our own money. Yeah? But now the real technical connection with private sector is that innovations hardly scale on their own or with only government support. They need private sector support to scale and penetrate. Why? Because private sector is the one that understands markets. They're the ones who understand consumers. They deal with customers every other day. And they've got infrastructure that's normally beyond their own headquarters. So if today I was speaking to a financial institution like an insurance firm called Britam, they would tell you they've got branches in many countries, all right? KeNIA does not have. Now, if I supported an innovation or an innovator who has a solution in insurance company, then I connect them to Britam, all right? Then Britam tells them, oh, you know what, we run an incubation program here. You come, we house you, we will give you access to all these customers in 6 countries. And you can pilot your project there, you can get, we can promote your product. So you see, very quickly, a startup is able to ramp up their market penetration just because of that partnership. Another way to explain this is that innovations normally grow from what we call technology readiness levels from level 1 to level 9. So ideas that are in very, very formative stages and they are undergoing basic research are in level 1. But ideas that have matured and have scaled across regions are in level 9. Now, as a KeNIA, we support innovations largely in the early stages, and we call that de-risking. We want private sector to invest in these ideas. But for them to invest, they need to be sure that these ideas will succeed. So what the government will do is that they will enable these ideas to be tested and piloted and validated. That's the de-risking. So we give them grants, we give them access to free infrastructure, training, and so on and so forth. And as the ideas start maturing, then we attract private sector to invest in them and develop them further. And that's how now private sector takes them from about level 5 all the way to level 9, and they thrive and they create employment opportunities for people, and they pay tax. Okay? Now, it's important, therefore, to note that the innovation agency plays a role of a catalyst. So, for example, we're going to roll out a new financial product, which is a matching fund. A matching fund means we give you some money with your innovations on condition that there's a private entity, an investor, an impact investor, who is willing to put the same amount of money into that idea. So your job, first of all, is to look for private sector that is willing to put money. What does private sector bring in? They bring in some financial support. They bring in the scaling capacity to support the business idea to scale. Because as government, we won't be able to give you as much of that. But we're willing to de-risk the idea so that then the private sector can actually put in money. All right? So then we'll say, okay, fine. I'm willing to give you 15 million on condition that you find a private sector entity who's willing to put 15 million and support you and mentor you and coach you towards scaling your idea. If we meet such a person, there's a handshake. So measuring impact is a bit of a complex one because that's in the long term. But, you know, there are things like the Global Innovation Index. There are global measures of success for innovation, all right? So that's one way of measuring how much are we comparing ourselves to the rest of the world. So that could be one method. The other method is we look at transformation that is happening in institutions. So, for example, if I go to a university or I go to a TVET, we've got a mechanism for measuring their growth from an innovation standpoint, whether their policies are improving, their incentives, the funding, the partnerships, the quality of ideas that are emerging, and the quantity as well, the training that is happening, the leadership capacity, so people are attending training and getting more exposed. Those are indicators that we measure. So, for example, in institutions of higher learning, we run what we call an entrepreneur institution maturity framework. It enables us to assess the maturity levels, whether they are moving one step to another. That's a measure of success, all right? So there are those direct. Another good measure of success could be, are the startups attracting a lot of funding, all right, from foreign investors? Is the amount of tax being paid by emerging enterprises increasing or decreasing? If we look at teaching and learning, how is it happening? Do we get better pipeline of innovators from institutions or from the general public? If the answer is yes, then it means we are actually succeeding. If there is more collaboration taking place between private sector and academia, or private sector and research institutions, or investors and startups, in other words, more funding is being pumped by investors, and there is startups also emerging as a result of that, that's a measure of success. So there are several outputs and outcomes that we keep looking for as a measure of success of our. Okay, so KeNIA is a young institution by any standards. I mean, if you were to compare it with established parastatals, it's a young institution. And so we've been in existence for a little over 4 years. And when we started, basically I was alone. Started it from scratch. And that means you have to build the systems, the human capital, you have to recruit, you've got the funding, you need to, to design programs and start intervening in the ecosystem and so forth. So 2 challenges that I would observe there, or 3. The first one was funding, whether the institution has also the resources to roll out the many programs that it needs to. And then the related to that is now the human capital, because you need the resources then to get the right human capital that then helps you to deliver what you want to deliver. So human capital has been a challenge, but we are unlocking that now because we've become very visible and we've attracted quite some funding, both from government and private sector and a number of partners. The third challenge that I think has been there is being understood. Sometimes you have to explain to people what is innovation and how do you tangibly look at that and measure its success and progress. And then when you're investing in innovation, what do you get in return? You see, if today I were to tell you that I am building a road, or my job is to build roads, you can measure the number of kilometers that I actually make roads in certain locations. You can come and see. Or if I tell you I'm building houses, you can count the number of houses, the number of units, you can see them. But if I want to tell you that my job is to build an innovation system, then you go, okay, so what can I touch? What can I see? So it has taken time to also educate society, decision makers, policy makers, funders, to understand what this is. So a classic, very, very last interesting example is the success of the innovation agency, which can be seen by the number of innovative ideas that we can find in the public, is actually related to the quality of education. The more critical thinkers we produce from the education system, the higher the likelihood that we will create a high value throughput of innovative ideas, because innovative ideas are either because they're solving a challenge in society or that they're creating new value in society. For them to solve a challenge, it means somebody must have identified that challenge. Yes. All right? And that challenge must be well thought through in a way that when you create a solution, it impacts people. Now, if you're not a good critical thinker and a problem solver, you will not see problems. You will actually not see the challenges. So there is a relationship between the education system and the success of the innovation agency. It therefore means I am interested as an innovation agency to go to the schools, to go to the universities, and kind of see how teaching and learning is happening. Now, you see, that becomes a challenge that I have to connect myself to the education system in order to support the churning out of critical thinkers who will then become founders, who then will identify problems and solve those problems and create enterprises. And then I can support those enterprises by funding them. Otherwise, I won't have nothing to fund. Well, the mission of the institution is to, develop a national dynamic innovation ecosystem that creates jobs and wealth, leveraging the knowledge economy. That's the institution. Personally, I like to see solutions. I like to see movements. I like to see people lives becoming lighter and more effective and saving time, saving money, and so on and so forth. So I feel great when I see people's lives becoming better. And so there is an overlap there, or what you may call a commingling of mission statements between what I like to see and what the institution is all about. And that gives me quite a lot of energy on a day-to-day basis to be part of the innovation agency. So Frugal innovation enables us to look at innovative solutions that are low cost, sustainable, and they solve local challenges. And they are using local material to create. So the program that we've created, which we're calling Innovation Mashinani, is to identify such kind of ideas and support them to get a little more formalized. Because maybe somebody created something and maybe they're providing electricity in their small village using some wind system that they created. Now, such a person, what you need, they're making money, they are making some kind of livelihood, but they're not participating in the national grid, or maybe they're not being paid well, or something. You help to formalize and help them. You know what? You can make a lot more money if you register your entity, if you subscribe to, certain services of government, and you can access credit facilities, and so on and so forth. So that's our new program called Innovation Mashinani, which we hope to roll out in the new financial year from July 2025. Okay. You see, with technology, you can increase your reach significantly. So leveraging web, social media, online application systems, and so forth, we're able to get participation and expose our products and services with a very little effort and minimal time. For example, when we run the Presidential Innovation Challenge and Award, we can announce a call today, and in 10 days we have applications from all the 47 counties because we'll leverage the online presence. Our judging mechanism is also virtual, so we don't have to get judges to come and download documents to evaluate. In fact, we just give them accounts, they log in onto the same system, applications are assigned to them, they review, they put a score, and then over here I'm able to see the aggregate score in 2 days, and we've evaluated all the applications that we've received. I mean, that's an example. So we leverage quite a lot of technology, web presence. Our social media is very active, and that gets our word out there very, very fast. Inclusivity for us is very broad. It starts from the board. Yeah, so that in the board there has to be some element of gender balance. So inclusivity is from a gender perspective. The way we even have our own staff, we make sure that we are recruiting and we are giving the face of Kenya to the institution. That's inclusivity. When we run programs, you will find that there are very young people in the innovation agency, and there are very experienced people as well in the innovation agency. That's inclusivity in the context of age. And the challenge that we give to the staff to run different programs demonstrates that you want to be inclusive in the way people think, the orientation of the staff. So anyway, that's more from the inside. In terms of how we face the public, there are products for youth. For example, we have exclusive innovation challenge for the youth. We have an innovation program for students. When I say Innovation Mashinani is innovation programs for people who are in the rural setting, all right? We've got programs for institutional leaders, for example, vice chancellors or DVCs. So we design a range of programs for different kinds of people, because for us it's an ecosystem, and the ecosystem means we have players from different angles making contribution to the national system of innovation. And so far, we're proud of what we do. If I tell you innovation cuts across. So all sectors of society will find value in innovation, or they will actually create innovations, whether it is agriculture, healthcare, climate change, roads, housing, and so on and so forth. Now that's a general statement to tell you that as an innovation agency, we just have to work with pretty much everyone. Now for the education ministry, is because the way you teach people determines how they think about themselves and how they think about their environment. And in the process of thinking about the environment, they will come up, they will see challenges that they can solve. So we're very interested in the way teaching and learning takes place in order to produce the next generation of founders and startups. And younger people will process things differently than older people. And the sooner you're able to get the younger people in their education system, the higher your chances of actually influencing their contribution to the innovation system. Secondly, people who do research and consulting work in institutions of learning, they come up with inventions and discoveries. And those discoveries are potentially a foundation for new ideas and new startups and new innovations. So we are keeping an eye on the research and the practice of research and the research outputs and try to feed that into the innovation. Everybody is an innovator. I like to ask that question, are you an innovator? And some people doubt. No, everybody is an innovator. We may be different in the way we innovate, or we may have different intensity or different backgrounds and experiences. But all of us have a contribution to making the national system of innovation. Because if I want to ask you about creatives, for example, people who create content, now the way content used to be made before is different from the way it's being made now. And what is the differentiating factor? It's innovation. It's because somebody created a different way of doing it, which is faster, more efficient, more effective. And that reduces the pain point of the person who was creating content. Therefore, as a content creator, you're leveraging on innovation to actually produce something. You can now produce more content faster and more effectively. So we are interested in you. If you're creating a film, if you're creating music, if you are a singer, and now your music is finding its way out there much faster. It's leveraging innovation. If you're a cook, you can cook better, right? Because now you have more information and you can think through recipes better. You're accessing information a lot faster and so on and so forth. So anyone and everyone participates. The question might be whether they are participating in the innovation agency's activities. Maybe not all of them. But if you say a researcher is involved in some research output, some research work in some farm somewhere, and they come up with some chemical or some product that reduces the rotting of food produce. So a researcher now has some innovative ideas that we can commercialize. You see now they are starting to participate in the innovation ecosystem. Remember I said in the innovation system, you've got ideas at early stage like level 1 all the way to level 9. So you may be doing some work in some research lab. You are in the innovation ecosystem, it's just that you are in level 1. So people may be participating in the innovation system without realizing. And sometimes we help them to realize so. Sometimes they get more involved with time, others drop off, and that's fine. But all of us are innovators. Yeah, so remember I mentioned something, innovation mashinani.
Yes.
So this might be some young person, probably 15 years old, never went to any school, but identified a problem. So schooling is not a prerequisite for being innovative. It's not a condition, all right? Yes. In any case, you can be learned without having gone to school, all right? So you can be educated, because what is education? Education is the development of the mind. You may have gone through a formal education setting. I may have gone through an informal education setting. I may be more qualified than you, and so on and so whatever. So for us, that's neither here nor there. It doesn't matter. The reason why you find us working closely with institutions is because there are structures. And there is an institutional leader. There is a process for procurement. There is security. You can be sure that if I allocate resources to this institution, there is a system in which these resources will be managed, all right? So and then we are working with potentially a lot of people, a large number. If today I were to go to a university called Kabianga, I will potentially work with 15,000 young people. Then I can scale what I want to do very quickly. That's a bit different from when I walk into the streets and I find some 3 young people who have worked on something. But that's not to say we don't work with these kind of people. We do. When we run challenges and we run grants and call for proposals, we invite everyone. It's just that for us to scale part of what we have to do, we sometimes have to work with institutions. So the answer is yes. We do look for innovations outside the formal systems. Yeah, on our website, there are very many programs, very many projects, not even programs, very many projects. If you search for the Presidential Innovation Challenge and Award as an example, or the National Innovation Award as another example, you will see lots of projects that have been funded of people out in their own spaces. I mean, you will go to Kericho and you will find a project that was supported by KeNIA. There are many of them, very many examples out on the portal. You know, innovation does not also work in isolation. First, you want to scale ideas so that they can get to other markets. And in this case, you leverage institutions that have an international presence. Second is knowledge exchange. There are people who have succeeded in doing things that you are trying to do now. A good example is you are currently working on innovation clusters, development of innovation clusters. There are countries that have succeeded. So we end up working with them for purposes of acquiring knowledge and exchanging experiences. The other space is that they increase the visibility of what we do. We partner with them to do specific projects, and we also raise funding from some of these partners. We are working with JICA, we're working with the FCDO, the UK government, UK Kenya Tech Hub, we work with the Lemelson Foundation in the US. We've got projects with the private sector like Huawei, we've got joint projects with them. Currently we are running a project with IDRC from Canada. So range of different partners with different interests. And as long as we are able to find a common ground, we end up working and we end up creating different kind of value for each other. For example, IDRC, we're trying to build a Pan-African network of innovation agencies. So they have they have funded the recruitment of a secretariat, and now we've got a team, 5-6 people, and they are connecting with all the African countries that have innovation agencies. That's an example. What we're working on with the Lemelson Foundation has got to do with commercializing innovations that are coming from institutions of higher learning. So that needs expertise, needs mentorship, coaching, funding, and so on and so forth. So different kinds of partnerships, and there are many of them. There's an opportunity for you. I mean, there's a space for you. I mean, it's a question of being persistent, determined, and want to make a contribution in society, and also satisfy yourself that you can actually add value and solve challenges in society. It doesn't necessarily mean it's easy. Even the life of an entrepreneur is never easy. The life of a leader is never easy. I wouldn't tell you that my life is a very easy life. Very many people sympathize with me because sometimes you'll find the whole weekend I was working. I can even come to the office and work the whole Sunday. Now, but you see, life is never easy. And success is also does not just, like fall from the tree and everything is just nice all of a sudden and so on and so forth. But follow your passion. If you strongly feel you have a contribution to make in solving challenges in society, however tough it may be, put your skin in the game, push hard, you will be satisfied at the end of the day. So we've got 2 programs that we run for purposes of capacity building and exposing people and scaling that capacity development process. One is what we call a startup school. And the second is an innovation academy. So the startup school targets people who want to be founders and want to be innovators, and they are teaching innovators. And through that, we are doing a lot of capacity building on issues of business modeling, value proposition design, fundraising, pitching, and so forth. And then the Innovation Academy focuses a lot on issues like IP, protection, commercialization, IP strategies, technology transfer, and so on and so forth. So currently we are a bit limited in terms of the way we do this capacity building because it's face-to-face. So we normally, when we run a call, we'll take a certain number and we'll go to some place, go for training 3 to 5 days, and then people go back. And now we're transitioning to create an online training program where you can actually get pre-recorded content and you can access it at your own convenience. We also have a lot of partnerships with institutions like WIPO, who have a WIPO Academy, for example. So they've got already a lot of content, which we normally forward to people to say, consume this content, it will help you in your innovation journey. The protection of intellectual property is the responsibility of Kenya Copyright Board and Kenya Industrial Property Institute, KIPI. So for us, we don't manage that registry, nor do we do the actual protection. But we work in collaboration with these 2 institutions and a lot of private sector officers who are into intellectual property. These are patent lawyers and so forth, to support us whenever we are running specific programs that have elements of intellectual property and commercialization. So let's take an example. If I were running, when we run our intellectual, not our intellectual property, we run your Innovation Week, our KeNIA Innovation Week, there are a series of workshops on intellectual property that go on concurrently, working closely with these institutions that I mentioned. Another example is that we actually run training programs for intellectual property. It's within our mandate. In fact, one of the functions we have and one of the highest targets we have is how many people do you train to appreciate intellectual property and its commercialization. We also expect that people who go through our programs must attend a course on intellectual property for them to receive funding from us. You see, if you are working on an idea and we are recognizing your idea, and that's great, we can give you funding and then you make a lot of mistakes. So one of the conditions is that you should attend some form of intellectual property training, so that intellectual property management training, so that then you can make appropriate decisions. Well, we do run programs like the KeNIA Innovation Week or the KeNIA Startup Summit, which comes up, the startup is in June, and then we have the SEAL Summit, the Commercialization and Entrepreneurship Institutions Leaders Summit, which comes up in August, the Innovation Week in November. In all this, we try to attract as much of diaspora. And we've started working closely with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and diaspora issues, so that then the programs we run are relevant and there are points of convergence, whether it's from a knowledge exchange standpoint, from an investment standpoint. I do get a lot of calls of Kenyans who are based outside who want to contribute either as advisors. I receive a lot of support in terms of how to think through certain ideas. And in some cases, we are also trying to open opportunities for diaspora to invest in startups that are local. We haven't found a very effective way of consolidating the resources that then we can channel to startups, but we encourage members of diaspora to directly invest in startups. So one of the things that I did as I asked myself that question is I designed a 10-year innovation master plan. And I convinced the head of state to own it and launch it. And we launched it 2 years ago. And that master plan provides a sense of direction of the key things that we need to be focusing on. One being skills for innovation. And that ranges from children in kindergarten all the way to policymakers' skills. Second is infrastructure for innovation. It means that you should be able to access the infrastructure you need when you're trying to innovate, whether it's digital presence, whether it is a computer, whether it's a lab, whether it's an incubation center. And finally, it's policy issues. And so this is part of why we started working on the startup bill, the national IP policy, we're working on national innovation policy, and so on and so forth. Now, with those inputs as necessary inputs into a national system of innovation, you can only ask yourself what happens to the country 10 years down the road. So, and the indicators of success would be, how do you stack up globally in terms of your startup ecosystem? Or how do you rank in your global innovation index? How many patents, for example, are we able to produce as a country? And so on and so forth. But as an institution, the Innovation Agency, now we just moved to the Office of the President. Starting from 4 years ago being a one-person show in this space, but now we've moved up quickly, and now we are running a horizontal agenda across government. I can only say in 10 years, the Innovation Agency will be as important as the Kenya Revenue Authority. And I will explain what I mean. Kenya Revenue Authority collects money, keeps an eye on collecting taxes. The Innovation Agency is going to be creating wealth, leveraging innovative ideas. And what we need is a significant institution in terms of size, in terms of expertise, in terms of manpower, to support the commercialization of the knowledge economy. That's how I see it. And the AI now is a big story. I mean, big conversation happening everywhere. We haven't started mainstreaming that into the Innovation Agency as such, because for people who are involved in emerging technologies and how they feed into the innovation ecosystem, it does require resources, it does require national strategies and so forth. So the Ministry of ICT is championing, of course, a national strategy for AI, against which we are able to embed. So for now, we are keen more to see, we have given a lot of input into the national AI strategy, and our hope is that once it becomes more formalized, then we will take our space to run with AI. But our aspiration is that we will have specific programs for deep and emerging technologies. So for people who want to innovate, leveraging AI, we'll provide the support that they need from a policy standpoint, funding standpoint, access to markets or capacity building, and so on and so forth.